All right, today on Ship Chasing, we've got a special guest. I believe his first time on the channel, Theo from Fantasy Points. We're going to chop it up on a variety of topics, including those dusty veterans none of us want to take, but who might have one last ride in them for our best ball teams. Also, maybe taking a little peek at the season-long ADPs, seeing some of the differences there. I'm Pete with Davis, Pat, and guest Theo. Let's do it.
Pat Fryer Helmo.
This is why I'm hot.
Anita Handjob.
Fix your sight. Jamar. Alpha play chase. Are you kidding me? Kadarius Toney?
You can't handle the heat.
It looks like we're finally this boys. You're right.
All right. Theo, welcome to the show. I've been enjoying listening to some of your podcasts over on the Fantasy Points Network. You guys have been cranking out some dynasty stuff and a lot of good redraft content as well. Welcome to Ship Chasing.
No, happy to be here, guys. Yeah, Pat came on. Davis has been on. Pete, we got to get you on. But yeah, we've been busy over there. It's been a really good offseason. Stoked to be over at Fantasy Points and happy to be chopping it up with you guys as well. This should be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Pat, how are we doing? You still live in the Brooklyn nomad life?
Yeah, I'm in Manhattan actually.
Okay.
And yeah, just got in on Monday, spending some time here. Just kind of little vacation / I don't know, it's not vacation because I'm still working, but it's a new place. So
it feels like vacation when you're working from a crouched position in the corner of the room and your kid is making noise. You're like, dude, this is the life, man.
Well, did you packed?
Were you here earlier? Like that? You just described my early afternoon perfectly.
And you packed your full mic setup. Like that's how you know it's not just a vacation. Like if you're bringing the big boy mic, you're there to work.
No, I've got a big suitcase. A little overpacked.
I'm taking a lake vacation in July. And like my plan is to not work, but I'm going to be gone for 8 days. So I probably have to bring the mic. Like there's just
early July or late July?
July 12th. So like
that's like a better period than I always remember it being.
I'm going to be getting back after camp.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, Theo, you just are now eavesdropping on our logistical and show.
We gotta get Davis one of the little tiny wearable mics, like he's one of the YouTube guys.
to make TikToks, right?
Yeah, to make TikToks for sure.
Well, I was gonna say because Davis, I had already talked to Pat because I'm gonna go up to go down to New York, and I think it's like the 11th, and we're probably gonna take that Thursday show off anyway. So I think you'll be good there.
Wow, we timed this pretty well.
Literally perfect.
Yes. But Theo, you said you draft everything, right? You're in the best ball streets, obviously, the dynasty, the season long. Which one of those formats do you consider your baby, or do you view them all like a children you love equally?
I mean, I think that anybody who plays dynasty like secretly has like a real love for dynasty because you're constantly looking at your dynasty teams all year long.
Secretly?
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's like I don't know. I feel like redraft is what I talk about most.
Yeah.
Most of my podcasts are redraft. I've had probably the most success in redraft, but over the last maybe 5-6 years, it's been like a move towards taking on even more volume in dynasty. So I just always bite off a little bit more than I can chew. Wednesday nights are complete torture for me. Waivers are absolutely awful. But I love it. And then best ball, I think you sort of have to play. If you're a serious player now, if you're not getting in early best balls, then like, what are you doing? Nothing prepares you more than drafting a ton of best balls. So obviously I have to do that. FFPC and underdog for me for best balls, but I'll play NFFC. I'll play FFPC for the high stakes. And then dynasty wise, I try to keep it almost all on FFPC just for the logistics. And then I'm in a couple of other leagues. I'm in one with Davis. We had that big trade a couple of months ago and a couple other like MFL type sleeper type leagues, but not too many of those.
Oh yeah. You were the person who fleeced Davis so he could draft Ashton Genty. Is that correct?
We were both happy.
Literally
both happy. We were both happy.
I think it did actually end up working out. Like he got 3 guys who wouldn't crack my starting lineup, and he likes all of them. So
yeah, I mean, I got Travis Hunter, Ted McMillan, Colston Loveland. So I had a nice walk away, and we did this before the actual NFL draft. So I sort of ran pure with Loveland landing spot. Obviously, Travis Hunter.
You also
and
ran
Kevin
pure
Dillon.
we draft with donkeys because I
That's-
think you got Tet at 1-6, which is just like, all right, guys.
Yeah,
what's
Tyler
going
Warren
on
went
here?
at the 103 in that league. Tyler Warren
Yeah.
was 103. So there you go.
There you go.
Any kind of meta or big landscape things that you're picking up on this year? Obviously, we're all kind of navigating this new ADP on Underdog, where the quarterbacks are really cheap right now. Lots of tight end values. How are you kind of enjoying to attack things right now?
I think in FFPC, I've really kind of enjoyed drafting from like the back end of the first round. I think like being at the end in FFPC is a real advantage to you right now. I think in other formats you can kind of win from everywhere, but FFPC you get access to, potentially drafting a Trey McBride at the end of the first round, get the elite tight end, and then you could also go with one of the anchor RBs, and then come across with like a Drake London, a Lad McConkey. So sort of my big takeaway is, as the summer moves on, just how strong that trio of second round wide receivers are. I think like if we were drafting a few years ago where people were less running back enthusiastic, guys like Drake London, guys like Lad McConkey, if this was, even 3-4 years ago, I think people would have been making a lot more arguments to take those guys in the first round. So I've really liked sort of the anchor RB, and then follow up with London, follow up with McConkey or AJ Brown. So that's sort of been my takeaway, but it's sort of shaping itself out as we get into July. I'm open to multiple strategies this year too. Not sure what's going to be the optimal one by the end of the summer, but I do like drafting from the back in FFPC right now.
Pat, I know you guys have you just dropped some eliminator rankings. I know you guys are working on some sim stuff. Any new insights over there from the Leg Up bunker?
Yeah, we did a stream earlier this week with Shady, announcing that we have Sims of the season, which is pretty fun, and we're able to evaluate teams that have been drafted, which we did for the stream, but we're also going to have some updates to the Sidekick, which utilize those Sims to create some new stuff we can do, like supporting Eliminator and alternate formats like that. One of the insights I would say from testing with the sim-driven Sidekick is like, some of these running backs that I don't really like to take are pretty good picks this year, especially if you build.
You mean to tell me in half PPR, running backs might be a little bit undervalued by a community
I think
just
they are.
wants to make Jerry Jeudy a 5th round pick.
Yeah,
Speak on that.
Jerry Jeudy's the exact example. It's like it's because of like what's available later at the running back position versus what's available later at the receiver position. And it's like, you can wait a couple rounds and get Jaden Reed, or wait a couple rounds of running back and things get even more fragile. So taking these guys like Mixon and Hubbard and I mean, and also like Harvey and Henderson. So it's not just fragile profiles there. That's something I'm doing more of now than I probably would have done. Another thing is that 3 quarterbacks is probably underutilized at these prices and with these other options in the late rounds and mid to late, mid to basically throughout the teen rounds, throughout the round 10 plus. It's like there's not a ton of guys that anyone's super excited to draft, and then you just have these quarterback points just like falling and falling and falling. I was going to take unstacked CJ Stroud today at like 150, which is 14 picks past ADP. He ended up going before I went, but like stuff like that, I think is actually, it's not like the sexiest stuff, but trying to advance, trying to get through a playoff week, single elimination week where that guy happens to hit your lineup, I think it's probably an underutilized tactic right now.
One of the things that was said on that pod that really stuck with me about the 3 quarterback thing, and I don't remember which of you guys said it, but this idea of not only are you taking maybe an undervalued asset, let's say like the Geno Smith, Bryce Young, but you also are avoiding taking a potential landmine at another position. It's like, it's not even what you're adding. It's like, okay, maybe this is a luxury to my quarterback room, but you're avoiding a really bad pick in a kind of treacherous area of the draft board.
Exactly. And I'm curious because this is the first time we've done this, so I don't know what the end of the summer is going to look like, but I actually think my theory is that it's not like 3 quarterbacks will go away, because we're seeing 3 quarterbacks recommended on teams with Josh Allen, on teams with Jaden Daniels, all of these elites, it's popping up. If it makes sense, it makes sense. It's not, and it makes sense on a lot of builds in a lot of different ways. So I think at the end of the summer, 3 quarterback builds are still going to look like something that's very, very viable. But I do think that in some cases, you'll see it less in the player recommendations, because there will be running backs that we're really excited about that weren't getting drafted at all earlier in the tournament and are now like priority targets. And that's kind of the part that we're lacking right now in the final rounds. There are guys that I really like, but honestly, it's more like receivers, like a Pat Bryant, some tight ends that I like, that type of thing. We don't yet have those running backs that are just absolute smashes, partly because we can't. Part of the reason that they are absolute smashes is because you just got to have some leverage.
Courage of your convictions. Spoiler alert, one of the only players I've drafted more than 8.3% of is an 18th round running back. I think there's
Richard Smith?
Yeah. Well, and Audric Estime, he's dead now, so that's why you only take 8.3% of.
Davis has made the huge, leap as an individual where he's hiding his laundry fandom in the 18th round instead of the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th round.
That's mature.
That's growth.
Honestly,
it's like I look, man. I'm not getting out of my skis on Rushy. I'm not getting out of my skis on Worthy. I'm making myself eat my Mike Evans vegetables. But it's like round 18, a little SMU converted wide receiver to a running back treat. Like imagine, this is not the thesis of this show. We're supposed to talk about the opposite of this, but imagine prime Dexter McCluster, not with Alex Smith, but with Mahomes. That sounds pretty fun to me, right? Plus, Reeves gave me permission. Reeves said all these other guys are stiffs. Come on, just let it happen.
Yeah, and also if you're investing in Isaiah Pacheco, who's pretty cheap right now, it's not hard to envision that the only 2 fantasy viable backs for like underdog would be Pacheco and Brashard Smith. So you can essentially get the entire Kansas City backfield pretty cheap right now, Davis.
Yeah, maybe to segue into some of these intriguing bets, I do think one interesting point to start is with these underpriced, or do you find them overpriced tight ends? We obviously have Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, way cheaper. Even the Goddard and Ferguson tier is way cheaper than they were in previous years. Theo, do you find yourself gravitating to some of these veterans, or are you kind of chasing younger options?
David Njoku, I find myself drafting a lot in multiple formats. I like Njoku a lot. And I know there's like the threat of Harold Fannin Jr. this year, even cutting in just a little bit, but there's so much to like here. It's just a very simple bet. Can Njoku be a top 2 target in Cleveland? It's a team that lacks pass-catching weapons. And Njoku's delivered for us for 2 straight years, been a really high target earner, a spike week guy. And we also get like the potential that there could be a bunch of Joe Flacco starts this year, where Flacco loved Njoku. It was like such a cheat code to have Njoku in your lineup when Flacco started. I think that that's out there. So Njoku's priced really correctly right now for a guy that I think could deliver. And it's kind of funny where usually I try to avoid like that low end tight end 1 type bet where you're better off going with the elite tight end or piecemealing it together with sort of upside guys. But I like Njoku. I think Evan Engram, you also want to have a little bit of exposure to for the same sort of argument that he could be a top 2 target in what should be a pretty good offense. You have the Sean Payton factor, the idea of Engram in the slot, maybe, the whole Joker conversation. So I don't know. I kind of don't mind those veteran tight ends, the low end tight end 1 types. And then there's a couple of others sort of like later on, but I'd say specifically Njoku's a guy that I'm into right now at ADP in multiple formats.
Yeah. Njoku was my top one. I mean, he just is like, worst case scenario is he probably gets like 800 yards on just an absolute dog shit Browns team. But this is a good one. Any week that Joe Flacco is the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, what is the Michael Leone projection or the fantasypoints.com projection for David Njoku? Higher or lower weekly median ranking in projected points? 8.5 at tight end.
Yeah, he's probably a smidge above that.
I think higher
for sure.
So I think that's it right there.
That is a funny thing you think about, because I do think his price is driven in in a big way by the quarterback uncertainty. But like if you told drafters, hey, you're going to get Joe Flacco weeks 15 through 17, Njoku's probably going 2 rounds higher. Like if drafters actually knew that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that like if
he falls
if
sometimes too. Like Njoku, I'm not that into him, but then I'll just be sitting there and he's like, he's still here. And at a certain point, I kind of feel this way with the Colts receivers now. I've just gotten kind of more and more in. And Richardson tweaked his shoulder apparently, so that's more likely to be Jones. But I'm like, at what point do I just like take players who are good and earn targets, and I don't have to know exactly how the quarterback situation plays out? Like it'll play out how it plays out, you know? But
yeah,
like at what point are we basically saying like they're not going to have a quarterback? They're just going to run constantly or something like, you know, Njoku, he really can slip, and it's like him versus Dalton Kincaid, who's dealing with like some sort of lava lamp issue in his knee. Like I don't
yeah, you could get like a Njoku, you could just get him in like the 140s.
Yeah, anytime you guys do a podcast talking about week 17 game stacks and your favorite games, I think Njoku slips a little bit because that Cleveland Pittsburgh game, no one wants any part of that game whatsoever.
No.
There's no correlation for Cleveland. So there's no quarterback receiver correlation whatsoever. There's no week 17 correlation. No one's trying to cram in like a DK Metcalf, Jerry Jeudy, David Njoku lineup. Like, so all those guys are a little bit lower.
I will say though, we do have breaking news. The chat is all over this. I just confirmed it. Aaron Rodgers did just officially sign with the Steelers. So we have one quarterback from the Turd Bowl solidified.
Not exactly. What he said is that he told Jerry Dulac he plans on signing before training camp is over. So
I need to see ink on paper with Rodgers.
I can't believe. I mean, this is getting reported by every large, national reporter. But leave it to Rodgers to somehow milk an announcement of an announcement. Like he just truly.
It's called the Turd Bowl for a reason,
How about this? Let's get it. Theo, live instant reactions. What does Aaron Rodgers to the Steelers do for the offense and maybe the prices in drafts?
Well, I think it makes them go up because we actually have an answer to who's going to be the quarterback in Pittsburgh. It's not going to be some like awful disaster. We saw Rodgers support Devontae Adams last year. Devontae played really, really well with Rodgers last year. I think it was 17, 18 points per game in games with Rodgers. I think DK Metcalf, and when we talked a little bit in the pre-show about guys whose ADP is higher among main event drafters and early FFPC ADP versus like the underdog drafter, DK Metcalf is higher. And I think DK Metcalf is going to creep up a little bit more now with Rodgers there because there's no wide receiver target competition whatsoever for DK. Now we have some clarity at the quarterback. And when it's Aaron Rodgers, we know he's going to hyper-target the guy he trusts. He's not going to trust any of those other wideouts in Pittsburgh. There's not going to be like some love for like Calvin Austin or Roman Wilson. It's going to be DK Metcalf on all passing downs. And I think like the Arthur Smith, like at the end of the day, Arthur Smith, the fears go out the window a little bit with Rodgers there because he's such a strong personality, going to kind of audible into his own stuff. And he's not signing with Pittsburgh to have like NFL low pass attempts next year.
Yeah.
I mean,
Davis, you're a big Caleb Johnson bull. Does this make you more excited about the run game?
I would say it's like probably slightly better for Jaylen Warren than Caleb. Not that it's bad for Caleb Johnson, but if I was saying who does this upgrade, like Warren, I would say is probably an early favorite to get the passing downs because that was the way he was used. I mean, in a backfield with Najee Harris. Now I think Caleb Johnson is much better than Najee Harris. I mean, they can now be the 19th best offense in the NFL instead of the 27th best offense in the NFL. But frankly, I feel like that was priced in. Like the DK Metcalf cannot possibly be a 4 or 5 turn pick if the market really thought Mason Rudolph was going to be the quarterback. Maybe the market was holding on to Kirk Cousins. Possibility. Kirk Cousins is now out of spots. There's nowhere Kirk can go. So congrats to Falcons. You played yourself because it feels like you probably could have eaten about half of that deal and got him out of it. And now you just are going to have Kirk Cousins in that quarterback room with Michael Penix all year. So shout out to the.
I wonder if they want the Dalton out that the Panthers had last year, like just in case Penix struggles, they could go back to Kirk for a minute and then back to Penix or something. I don't know. But if they really want to get off of Kirk, they completely mismanaged that.
Yeah. Well, what about this? I mean, for the pass catchers, it really, DK Metcalf, early 5th round, and then Pat Freiermuth, pretty cheap, but no other pieces from that passing game getting drafted. Does this make a guy like Calvin Austin more interesting to you?
Does the Jonnu trade actually go down now that they've got Rodgers? Do they try and go get a second pass catcher? I think that sort of would scare me off of trying to cram in a bunch of Pat Freiermuth if you like him in right now. Because I think if Jonnu shows up, it's not necessarily going to mean they move on from Freiermuth. He's just going to take a back seat. And the secondary, you can make an argument if the tight end is the secondary target in an Arthur Smith offense, he's still viable. But a number 3 receiver would be completely wiped out.
It would nuke both tight ends. Like Jonnu and Freiermuth would both be, they wouldn't be like totally undraftable, but it would seriously hurt both of their value. I really hope that doesn't happen. It sounds like that's more coming from Jonnu because he wants the new contract and the Steelers might be willing to give it to him. So he's like, I got to go like have a bad time in Pittsburgh, but maybe it's worth enough money and I'll go do it. I really hope that doesn't happen though.
Yeah, it'd be awful.
What about this one for connecting the dots? Wouldn't Keenan Allen make so much sense in Pittsburgh right now?
Do you think he'll listen to Rodgers talk about the Epstein files though? Like I feel like Keenan Allen might be past the age of dealing with that bullshit. You know what I'm saying?
He's like, Keenan Allen is past the age of getting to have a choice on what
I don't know.
he deals with.
I was just talking about this with Herzig, and my guess is that Keenan Allen's order of operations is one, he's probably made enough money. So I would say number 1 place he'd like to play somewhere warm.
Yeah, LA. He said that. He wants to play in LA.
Somewhere warm, winning somewhere, then making money.
Well,
right?
he also said
can't
Chicago,
any of those.
which is where he already lives, which is a classic old guy move. I just let me stay put. That'd be my first choice, or I'll go to LA.
100%.
Yeah. Amari Cooper, he's still unsigned. He could go there, I guess.
Yeah, I just think
that feels likely.
Amari, man, just getting passed around like a
Gabe Davis feels like. Also, didn't he already have a
they were connected to him? Yeah. But that's like, they're like, hey, can we interest you in an even worse version of George Pickens who we just let go? Introducing.
Well, honestly, Alan Lazard asking for his release would be another move.
That would just be
no, dude. They're gonna have to trade for him. They're going to have to trade like a conditional 4th round pick to the Jets to get Rodgers', but I guarantee that's part of like Rodgers being like, you're going to get me my boy, right? Mercedes Lewis has a job.
Do you think that's what's been holding up this whole thing? Is that they were just adamant they wouldn't trade for Lazard? And he was using this leverage to get them to?
The Steelers, a once proud organization, one of the few family-owned teams left, right? Long tradition. And to see them bend the knee to this Joe Rogan podcast guest is just
wait until they sign Randall Cobb.
Randall Cobb is the one. Yeah, 34-year-old Randall Cobb.
Week 1, everyone's gonna get a book on Egyptology, but like not like a scholarly Egypt. Like that's gonna be the giveaway. Like instead of bobbleheads, but not academic Egyptology, the type of Egyptology that Aaron Rodgers is into.
But like, how depressing is that? Like, if you're like sitting around, you're looking at Rodgers coming here, and you're the Steelers, and like, how do you answer the question? How is this going to be any different than what happened last year with the Jets? Like, how could anything possibly be even
all right?
better?
Rodgers is better than Russell Wilson. His peak was better. He was better than Russell Wilson last year. He definitely. Oh, Peter, come on.
Aaron Rodgers was definitively better than Russell Wilson last year.
Like literally, I think maybe even a tier difference. Not even in the same. I don't think
that's
tier.
true.
The Jets would have traded straight up for Russell Wilson than what they were getting from Aaron Rodgers at the end last year.
Rodgers was horrible at certain points last year. He kind of like pulled out of the tailspin to close the year. They had that Jaguars spike week, but like there were times, I think it was maybe like week 12, week 13, that type of range where it's just like, he is done. Like done. It really looked over.
He can't move. right?
Yeah, that hurts.
So that's a problem. But Russ, I frankly, just in my mind, it's like I actually don't like either of these guys.
Yeah, me neither.
But Rodgers is just like I think he's like a tier better.
Tap in, Theo. Make the case for Rodgers over Russ.
I'm Rodgers over Wilson as well, and I think just like as a organization, it's just so much more stability in Pittsburgh. You know, you're coming into a team that makes the playoffs, that has a better offensive line than he dealt with last year in New York. They're not going to fire offensive coordinators mid-year. You're not going to fire the head coach mid-year. It's just a little bit better bet for Aaron Rodgers to end up in Pittsburgh than potentially last year with New York. I mean, neither one is good, but I would take Rodgers over Wilson right now as well. I'm with Davis on that one.
What do you guys think this offense looks like? Like, Aaron, Arthur Smith obviously has been very run heavy, but it's also like he's had success with Tannehill, like doing like, booting him out, kind of using like half the field reads, that type of stuff. He did like, with Ritter and Mariota, way less successful, but both mobile guys. Russ isn't like super mobile, but you can do the kind of Tannehill stuff, and Fields obviously mobile. So it's been a while since we've seen someone like truly immobile in this offense. And Rodgers just does not, like, the peak Rodgers would have been really interesting in this system, but this version of Rodgers, like, what do you do? You have to do like way more quick passing stuff. I don't even know. I mean, one thing that might happen is that Rodgers gets them to bring in Nathaniel Hackett or something shitty like that, and they change the offense up. But I guess I'm wondering, like, is there an instant power struggle here in terms of what whose fingerprints are on this offense?
I mean, I think 100% you nailed it, that it's a power struggle, Arthur Smith tendencies versus what Aaron Rodgers wants to do. But I think that like the amount of money they gave to DK, they want to focus on using him on play action. They draft Caleb Johnson. Last year, they put a lot into the offensive line. They had a pretty high play action rate last year. And I think they'll continue to do that, run and then utilize DK over the top. Maybe DK inside the red zone. I think that's sort of like on paper what they are. But it's definitely going to be a power struggle. If it's Arthur Smith, previous, like everything we've known about him, now you have this massive personality, Aaron Rodgers, who's going to call whatever he wants. They don't really line up with one another. So there had to have been a meeting of the minds or something like that where they were going to go into this one, because it seems like a really weird fit. You brought up like Tannehill, quarterbacks with mobility, design run attempts for your quarterback. Like on paper, like why didn't you just kind of bring back Justin Fields for this team?
Right.
But I don't know. It's definitely a weird one, but you have to lean towards them going with a Rodgers-led offense than Arthur Smith like imposing his will on Rodgers.
Matt in the chat says he thinks Rodgers' input would be good for Artie. I actually agree. In a world in which like Arthur Smith and Aaron Rodgers can collaborate, it could they could both
imagine
improve.
Being in a meeting between those two minds.
But I don't see that happening. I don't see that being a collaborative effort.
They are going to hate each other. They are going to absolutely hate each other. Especially because like Arthur Smith's MO is like hiding the quarterback and making the offense still function. And Aaron Rodgers' singular goal in life is to be the center of attention and be the engine of the offense.
How many goal line runs do you think Aaron Rodgers is going to check out of? Like he is not, there's going to be like not a single pass play called to the goal line, because otherwise they'll never run the ball.
The anti-Caleb Johnson argument right there, Pat. Like Caleb is the volume and rushing touchdown guy, and now you've got Aaron Rodgers just checking out to quick slant to DK instead.
Darnell Washington catching the touchdown instead or whatever.
Yeah. Theo, who is your most drafted? Some of your most drafted players. Do you have any veterans in there? Or are you a rookie chaser at heart?
I think I'm a little bit of both. For most drafted players, we talked about Njoku. I have a ton of exposure to him. Drake London's been a guy that I've been clicking the button on a lot early. I think he's setting up to have a really, really strong season. I was getting some Bucky Irving earlier, and I still have some, but I'm not like over the top. And I'd say for another veteran that I'm drafting a ton of is Jawan Jennings a little bit later. I think the market is sort of undervaluing him, undervaluing his role. And I think all of the San Francisco pass catchers are all sort of well priced to have success. And now with the Ricky Pearsall hamstring, I think it's going to become clearer and clearer that it's Jennings. So Jennings has been sort of one that I've really, really liked to add, not just in best ball, but also in Dynasty and in redraft. I think he's priced really, really well.
It's hard for me to get like super excited about him.
He's a cap ceiling guy, Davis, but I think like a good cap ceiling. Like right now you're paying sort of a low end wide receiver 3 price tag. And at the end of the day, he could be wide receiver 20. Brock Purdy likes him. They used him a lot last year. He's 27. And it was such a difficult run up for him to sort of break through and get to the level he was last year. But he went north of 950 receiving yards last year, and everything's just sort of set up for him to have success this year. So I'm betting on a lot of these 49ers, like the non-Christian McCaffrey 49ers, I think are easy clicks. I think George Kittle gives you an edge. Jennings specifically. Yeah. George Kittle for sure is one that I like a lot. FFPC and also on Underdog. And there's just such a gap between him and the big 2 tight ends. I think, and he's also like Pat. It's like when you go from Kittle at tight end 3 down to Laporta at tight end 4, there's a big gap in like the ceiling outcome. So
I agree. And I like Jennings too. Jennings scares me. I have like 16% of him though. So I'm not
I was going to say, I draft the shit out of him and Pearsall, but I'm just like so ready for those to be like 2 of the worst picks.
I'm ready for it to be a rug pull. Like, the Russell Gage type of play where it's like, oh, this veteran's breaking out.
Who like, was the one who brought up Russell Gage?
Me. I think I did.
I was it. I don't remember. Whoever it was.
Because we used Marcus Callaway and then I was like, yeah, I think it's Russell Gage.
The specter of Russell Gage. I was just like, my God, man.
Because Gage had a good year that year. He did change teams, though. I think that to use a positive example, it reminds me like a little bit of Robert Woods, where he was like he changed teams and then became something for the Rams. But kind of a later career breakout. But he's coming off a really efficient season in an offense that we know can support, really efficient play. And like Ayuk's coming off injury, Deebo's gone, Pearsall like might not be anything. I think there's legit upside. Not like, to your point, Theo, not like huge upside, but why stop wide receiver 20? Couldn't he be like wide receiver 14? Wide receiver 15? Like I think that's live.
Yeah, I mean, for sure.
Jennings, wide receiver 14.
Yeah, it's not. How many
year 5 wide receiver breakouts? Lockett is the one that you can really point to.
Why do we have to say year 5? He broke out last year.
Yeah, last year was a breakout for him. You have to go with the counting stats.
Take away the 50-point game, and how good was he really?
He was good, man. I mean, you're just doing the laziest analysis.
So. The thing is that you just have frankly, I do not think there is a good way to analyze it. I just if you are a numbers based person, if you're a film based person, go with God on your Jennings evaluation. But players like Jennings are so weird, like on the field all the time, but don't get the ball. But then when they get the ball, it's pretty effective, right? Big difference between yards per target, yards per route run. Big difference, something like 70% of his targets his first 3 years in the league were on third downs or in the red zone, which is it's crazy. That 70 might be high. That's not the actual number, but it's really high. And then has the crazy ceiling game, then gets cucked at the end of the year by Ricky Pearsall, who then it's all just very bizarre.
Well, sort of. I mean, he was productive down the stretch. Ricky Pearsall just had a big game.
And we're going to clearly see what they had in Ricky Pearsall. Those were meaningful games.
One of the Pearsall big performances was Week 18. And I think, Davis, you make a good argument because if you're anti-Jawan Jennings, you have to be drafting some Pearsall.
It's indefensible to be below market on all 3 49ers wide receivers. That it's just crazy.
Think about
it's also indefensible to have 8.3% of every single player.
I have 8.7% of each 49ers player.
That's impressive. Last year we had Ayuk and Deebo going, and both were kind of 2-3 turn picks, right? It's there's Kittle is more expensive than last year, but but not a ton. And he probably should have gone here last year. He was undervalued last year. I also think he's undervalued this year. But there's some we can give to Kittle, but we kind of know who Kittle is. He's not going to just like week after week command a bunch of targets. It's more that when it comes together for him, he can spike, and hopefully that happens more often this year because there's weaker target competition. But there's a pretty big role here for the taking. And I'm playing it through Jennings more than Pearsall. Pearsall didn't show that much last year. I know he kind of came on a little bit down the stretch, but I don't know. I think Jennings, what Jennings did last year, I think is legitimately impressive.
How about this for a somewhat lazy comp? With Jennings, you're hoping that he can be like the poor man's Amon-Ra in that offense as like a chain mover and target hog. And you're hoping Pearsall can be the poor man's Jameson Williams in that offense, where he's getting loose for the big plays, and those are coming with enough frequency that you're excited to have him on your roster, but there's still going to be a ton of week-to-week volatility to the production.
That makes sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think of the X factor would be the Deebo Samuel manufactured touches. We still don't know which way the offense is going to sort of change in that regard. So that's a lot of like the pro Pearsall argument is he absorbs a bunch of those Deebo Samuel ones, because you're not going to get the manufactured rush attempts for Pearsall, but can they emulate that a little bit by getting the ball in his hands around the line of scrimmage? So that sort of would be the only X factor with that sort of parallel, Pete.
Yeah. Yeah, and you wonder, does it mean more Christian McCaffrey checkdowns? You know, like where are those going? But if it is short and intermediary stuff, then you're back to looking at Kittle and Jennings most likely, based on just kind of how they've operated.
And I've had this conversation with a couple people, sort of the ultimate galaxy brain conversation for like the rational coaching for San Francisco is George Kittle. What if they give him this huge extension? This has always been a guy that's been like a sub 95 target player, incredibly efficient. Do they just say this is the year and we're going to get more touches for Kittle, and we actually see Kittle get back to like he has 130 target season way eons ago. Can we get to like 125 targets for George Kittle and he just is the one you need at the tight end position this year? Maybe they go that route as well.
The one thing I'd say with Jennings is like with players like this, we're basically saying we think that this team is now going to put this player into a bigger role with the other guys gone. And that's like a little bit of a dangerous sort of situation, because if it doesn't happen, and it could very easily not happen, because we're projecting the team to like redesign the offense a little bit differently. But I just looked at his first three targets from last year. He was at 20% first read targets per route run, which was equivalent to Justin Jefferson and Amon-Ra St. Brown over the last two seasons.
Was it below A.D. Mitchell?
It's above. Actually, I don't know. You know what? It might be below that. Let me check him.
For a while, A.D.
Got to be a minimum threshold on this clear.
I bet you it is. Yeah, it's below. He was at 23%. but Jennings ran like 430 routes. So it was a pretty big sample. And I think with him, my point is like we actually saw last year him in the role that we're drafting this year. Like it feels like a projection because Ayuk's not healthy to start the season probably, and Deebo's gone, and so it feels like we're penciling him in for something new. But he actually already did this. I think he's undervalued by at least like a round. Like he probably belongs more in that 5th round group.
And I'll say, go ahead. I was going to say one other player that I've been drafting a little bit more of recently. I'm trying to get some exposure to Deebo Samuel, which feels like a little bit risky, a little bit gross, but I think the price is right for him. I think there's a lot of like vibes in Washington that they have high hopes for Deebo, and just stylistically, they had nobody who gave them any sort of yak ability last year besides like Austin Eckler. Like the wide receivers had no yards after the catch. I think Deebo's got a pretty strong role there, and a lot of positives with like the beat reporters saying he's in good shape. And I think the team really has plans to get the ball in his hands. So I think Deebo, like, again, it's a sort of player that I'd usually fade, but I think we want access to guys Jaden Daniels is playing with, and getting if you draft Jaden Daniels, having access to Deebo Samuel is just so much cheaper, where Deebo's like wide receiver 39 on Underdog, whereas Terry McLaurin feels like he's being drafted towards his ceiling. Now he's been off the field a little bit, but Terry at wide receiver 16 seems super expensive to me. Maybe he runs pure again, catches all those touchdown passes, and sort of beats that ADP. But I'd rather take a shot on the much cheaper but very clear wide receiver 2 in Washington, in Deebo. And then we bring up sort of the rushing attempts. That's an X factor. We didn't see that last year in Washington. But now you have Deebo. Do you not use him as a runner? I don't think it makes sense to have him on that team and not at least get the ball in his hands a little bit. So I think Deebo's a guy who could beat his ADP positionally by like 10 spots or more in a number of ways. So I've been getting some access to him as well.
Yeah, I'm with you on that take, Theo, and I haven't been able to get much other support with me in the Deebo Samuel.
It's hard to,
can I get him on a
scale?
scale? Can I get him on a scale? Can I know how much he weighs?
The visual, the visuals look good. Everybody saw the picture at the Super Bowl where he was wearing the Eagles jersey, and it didn't look very good.
We sure did see the picture.
But the pictures now look pretty good. Deebo looks like he's in shape, and I mean the beat reporters are all over him in Washington. It's a heavily covered team. They're all over Deebo's role. The organization seems to really like Deebo. He has a lot of connections in the building. And I don't know, everything just seems sort of there, and he's so cheap. Wide receiver 39. I mean, it's not a hard click to make. And then start trying to make an argument for another Washington receiver that could make a huge impact behind him, Davis. And it's really difficult from the tight ends to the other wide receivers. So it's sort of I think it could be a really consolidated offense to begin with. But I think Deebo is going to get his usual 90 targets. And then on top of it, a bunch of those manufactured rush attempts. And they were so efficient last year. Such a good rushing offense, a team that scored a lot of points, and we love the quarterback. So why not embrace like the very clear number 2 target in that role?
Have you guys seen, speaking of pictures, have you guys seen the RJ Harvey picture?
The quads?
I have.
The quads.
Oh, yeah.
Did I pull it up?
Another
J.K. Dobbins
guy.
backups photo?
Yeah, J.K. Dobbins backups. It just has incredible quads.
Just more evidence, by the way. 2025, it's going to keep being the year of the boomer. Thought we were going to get a fun second-round pick. Nope. Better learn. Rookie year, Mark Ingram, buddy.
That's just a discount, man. That's just a
152 rushes.
Davis,
Unless you were slamming in RJ
have some
Harvey.
Fun. Have a little fun this summer, please.
You got to be excited. I haven't been able to get much RJ Harvey. I hope Dobbins sign. Like, can we get him? Where would we get him if he signs? Is he going to be in the Caleb Johnson range? Cheaper than that?
I think he'll be in the mid to late 6th. I think the Slappies will price and force a little.
We'll hold the line.
Yeah, we'll hold the line. Davis, what are you going to be doing at this lake house trip? Like, are you just be in a cabin doing crossword puzzles? Like, I'm actually worried about your ability to let loose at this point.
No, I mean, look, if Harvey ends up being like 67th, like if Harvey is going after Kamara, it'll just be like
he would go after Kamara.
I think he would go after Kamara if they
yeah, we're just jamming the button. But I do want to come back to
for
Deebo.
a sweet 8.3%.
Dude, 9.7% of RJ Harvey's gonna hit like crack. So this is where I'm having trouble with the Commanders. McLaurin clearly overdrafted relative to like his projections, relative to his baseline, all that stuff. Deebo, I think, is the one that if you're using like projections, you're like, yeah, the wide receiver 2, historically been efficient, probably is going to score more touchdowns than the average wide receiver. Like he just is going to be a positive touchdown scorer. But also, like if you look at historical comps for a wide receiver who got like half their production via rushing in their career, has always done it on efficiency, never done it on volume, and in fact has gotten worse in high volume seasons, whose team gave up on him. It's like, okay, where's the good comp? Where's my good? You want to know the best one ended with the player in question punching his teammate the night before the Super Bowl, which would be Percy Harvin, who was still okay for the Seahawks, but struggled with availability.
Well, Cordarrelle Patterson had his moments.
Not till his third team. Not till his third team,
kidding.
Pat.
I was kidding.
Uh,
That would be a disaster, obviously, for where
Yeah.
Deebo's drafting.
so that's where it's just like, how cooked is Deebo physically? That's my concern. My concern is that Deebo is past it physically.
Yeah, I'm also torn on the Cliff Kingsbury aspect because I'm like, this is one of the few coordinators that I do trust to try to use Deebo like he has been used. But I also am like, wait, I'm getting you're taking away Shanahan and giving me Cliff Kingsbury, and I'm supposed to be cool with that. It's concerning, like.
But here's the thing. You're taking away Brock Purdy and you're getting Jaden Daniels. And like Jaden Daniels has just been
That's true.
a magnet for fantasy points from anyone surrounding.
woke, dude.
Yeah.
I like Brock Purdy, but Jaden Daniels is a superstar who was making De'Ami Brown and Olamide Zaccheaus look like second round fantasy wide receivers out there.
He was making them look like, okay, like if you spot started Zaccheaus last year, you weren't like having a great time.
Look, I'm just saying if you consolidate some of that around a real option as opposed to, spreading it out among 4 different, wide receiver 3 through 6s, I think there could be some fantasy goodness there.
And Pete, you have to also factor in that the offensive line got much, much better this past offseason. The Laramie Tunsil acquisition, draft a first-round lineman as well. Like, Jaden Daniels was able to do that last year with like a very, very average offensive line. This could be an upper-level offensive line this year. So, I don't know. I thought I was completely done with Deebo last year. Didn't seem like a guy, but this is like a life preserver, bounce back type landing spot. Just nothing but good vibes there with Deebo. Davis, I want you to go and take a look at some of the pictures of him right now. The in shape Deebo will get you motivated to draft some.
All right. If I could get, you know what I need? I need Deebo working out with like Derrick Henry, like pushing tires up a hill, shirtless.
Let me see if I can. Have these been like gone viral? Do I have to search hard for these?
I think you can get some Deebo. Like, look, he looks pretty good there. Doesn't look out of shape there.
He does look pretty. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although it's a bit of a baggy clothing.
I was gonna say he looks a little boxy. That's all.
Yeah,
that's
he's
all.
always been. Even peak Deebo was boxy. Peak Deebo was like,
you know what? Valid.
He's a running back.
Valid.
Yeah.
That's true.
I don't know. The face looks fairly full here. I'm not sold yet.
You're not so.
I need a little bit more.
Pat, I'm gonna get
here.
deep into the Google images later. I'm gonna find some for you. I'll DM them too.
By the way, speaking of the in shape hype, I was listening to Greg Rosenthal's pod, and Colleen Wolfe came on and was like talking about what Mark Andrews been doing to like redeem himself from that drop, and like how he's been like pushing tires in the rain and like doing the rope drills like nonstop and like jugs machine. And like it really I was like, damn, dude, this guy's like seriously putting in the work. And then they're like, is any of that true? It's like, yeah, no, I don't know. It's just completely. But I'm now like a little mentally higher on Mark Andrews for that.
That's the only silver lining of having such like a catastrophic singular mistake is it's just such clear bulletin board fodder. Like every time you go to work out, it's just like, I have to avenge this moment, as opposed to like, I had a so-so season. Like I should probably get better. It's like, no. The entire fan base hated you. It still, despises you because of this drop.
Yeah.
What other veterans have you been willing to take stabs on? I mean, a couple I put on the thumbnail here: Austin Eckler, Michael Pittman. Any of those guys or other veterans you're interested in?
No, I tried to make a pro Michael Pittman argument. I think it's really, really hard with Tyler Warren ending up there, even with Daniel Jones potentially starting. I just think it's moved on to you want access to Josh Downs, but there was no targets whatsoever for the tight ends last year. Like I think Kylan Granson had like 14 catches. And that was the tight end reception leader in Indianapolis last year. And no Indianapolis tight end had more than like a 6% target share. And now you're getting Tyler Warren coming in there. He's going to get a bunch of manufactured looks. The target share is definitely going to go way, way up with him there. So I think my bet would be Josh Downs in that offense. And then again, if you want to take shots at Adonai Mitchell, Alec Pierce in best ball, I think that makes a little bit of sense rather than taking Michael Pittman, who seems like, I mean, Michael Pittman had like one game last year that was better than a wide receiver 20 weekly finish. So I think I'm out on him. Despite what he did in years past, it's just too many mouths to feed in an offense that I don't really want too much access to. Eckler's interesting to the sort of the same argument because I think a lot of people are trying to talk themselves into Brian Robinson this year. as sort of a structural pick. But Eckler had the same points per game as Robinson last year. They didn't add a pass catching back. I like Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, but I think we're projecting him to potentially be a dark horse to maybe see some time behind Robinson. I think Eckler's sort of in his own little role. Led Washington in YAC. He had a strong target share at the running back position last year. And people are just sort of fading him a little more than they did last year because he's old. So I think Eckler's okay to draft in best ball. I don't think you want to go overboard. But he sort of has his own little mini role in that team. So yeah, for the thumbnail guys, I think I'm a little more into Eckler than I am on Pittman, especially in ADP.
I like the idea of there being thumbnail guys. We have this like small cohort of guys who just watch the episode waiting for the payoff of the thumbnail.
Waiting to be like, all right, dude, we got to sub Eckler out. We got to put Njoku in.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right. I'll ask Chris to do that. Pat, I mean, Pat, you've been on the kind of the bull side of the Pittman thing, and I have heard the Tyler Warren thing come up as kind of a bear case for Pittman. How are you thinking about that?
I just think that Pittman is good at what he does. He's limited in what he does. And so when he was getting drafted last year, and I think Downs is a better receiver. I think Downs is an awesome pick right now. I thought Downs was a better receiver last year, which is why I basically had 0% Pittman last year. I mean, I just thought he was egregiously priced because he was being priced like he has this like breakout upside, which he like very clearly did not. But now, you're getting him around like the pick 100. He's very much a best ball pick. I don't really have any interest in him in redraft.
He's priced like his back is still broken.
Yeah, his price like his back is still broken. Now he did limp off the field, I guess, to close OTAs, so we got to figure out if there's anything there. But assuming that's like not a serious thing, he's got a very established role in the offense. His entire career, he's run a ton of routes. Like he's an outside possession receiver. No one else in that offense does what he does, including Warren. Obviously, Warren's going to play tight end, and split out into the slot and do some design stuff. But that's not really like Pittman's role necessarily. Maybe on some RPO stuff, there's more target competition. And then largely there is more target competition, which isn't great for Pittman. But I don't know. I think you're getting enough of a discount on a guy who can play. Like it just, to me, I'm like, I think Pittman can play. I just don't think he's not great. But if I can take one of those if I can take a Travion Henderson in the 6th round and take a receiver pick, that like I don't need to draft kind of a boring veteran receiver in the 6th or the 7th, and I can move that pick to a Pittman around 100. I kind of like doing that right now.
He's surrounded by all of the rookies too with Pittman, Pat, where like I guess structurally your argument makes a lot of sense, but if you're chasing upside, all those contingent upside guys are there. Luther Burden, Emeka Egbuka is there. Trey Harris is right behind him. So Jaden Higgins goes like a few spots ahead of Pittman. I don't know. For me, if I'm chasing a wide receiver in that range on Underdog, certainly I shouldn't like be telling you how to draft Underdog, but I want access to those wide receivers like the Spike.
I like those guys too. Yeah. For me, it's more about like, okay, so like Jalen Waddle's going, in the mid 5th, so I can do him or an RJ Harvey, right? And then I can take an upside receiver or a Pittman. I kind of like the upside at running back a little bit more, and then taking a guy like to me the upside at receiver in rounds 5 and 6. There is some. It's not like I hate every receiver there. We just talked about Juwan Jennings, who's a 6th round guy, but the breakout profiles aren't really so much in that range. And if I can actually push back and take a Pittman as like my wide receiver 4, right? I feel like I'm kind of gaining something on the field a little bit. If I need upside at receiver, then give me Egbuka or Burden. I mean, those guys are really good picks. Harris and Higgins are interesting too.
Well, and the same dynamic happens in that like 7th round range, right? Where it's like, if you are behind at wide receiver, Jacoby Myers and Khalil Shakur are there for you. And if you're loaded, you got 4, it's like, no, give me Matthew Golden, give me Jaden Reed. Like, let me take that
100%.
cut. And then with the Pittman, like Theo said, there are teams where you have 5 wide receivers there. And it's like, I'm going to take Trey Harris or Jaden Higgins instead.
Exactly.
I'm interested to see, with this Anthony Richardson news, just how high up Josh Downs could
They're
run.
all gonna go. They're all gonna go up though. Warren's gonna go up. They're all going up.
The Downs one's interesting though. Like the Downs one, like he's been so cheap, but even if he rises up a little bit, he's still, I think, a pretty easy click comparing him to guys like injured Brandon Ayuk, Darnell Mooney, Cooper Kupp. Like Downs now, I think, should be going where the Green Bay wide receivers are going, maybe a little bit higher than that.
Yeah, I mean, that's where he should have been going really the whole time, I think. He's an awesome pick.
Yeah.
This dude is really good. He's really good. And think about, like, we got to remember this, right? In case this shoulder injury doesn't turn out to be anything and we're back to where we thought we were a couple days ago of it being like true competition in training camp.
I think we've actually been marked safe from that.
Okay, but my point is, if we get news that Daniel Jones is going to be a guy's quarterback and we're like, oh man, to the moon, like that,
that's
means
so
we were
you're right.
too low
you're right.
on him.
That's so
in
dumb.
the first place.
The only bump you should get is the stacking confidence bump that we were just describing with like the Steelers guys, right?
Just a pass rate bump. Daniel Jones will project for like 2 or 3 more passes per game than Richardson will.
Yeah. I mean, if based on this, like, shouldn't the Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones ADPs just essentially outright flip? Daniel Jones 213, Anthony Richardson 175. I mean, the quote from Steichen is pretty bearish. I don't think Jones should
go that high because Jones is set up in a Justin Fields-esque situation, I think, where like they're probably still going to want to see, unless it's like really bad, like he's out for the year, like he gets surgery, then you know, obviously that's different. But they're probably going to want to see Richardson at some point this year. So if Jones starts the season, he's getting benched. Like he's just not very good. You know, so he's probably going to get benched, and in part because they'll want to see if Richardson has anything left, you know, or has improved at all, is what I mean. So I don't know. I would take Jones a little later than Richardson because he doesn't have quite the same weekly upside profile.
I mean, I just am going to rank them both as round 18 guys, and probably not have either one of them be a huge portion of my portfolio at this point.
Well, I do think, like, I've been taking Daniel Jones, like I think all the super flex drafts I've done on Underdog, I've taken Daniel Jones because I've just liked his price relative to the other quarterbacks there. I mean, Theo, have you been picking a fighter as far as the Indianapolis QB when you start going down that path?
In Best Ball Mania, I definitely have more Anthony Richardson, but like you in the puppy but super flex, I've actually double tapped the two of them in a few builds just to kind of see what happens. And if they could each have some kind of usable weeks, they're both kind of priced right for that double tap. It's a kind of a weird thing to take 2 quarterbacks from the same team, but it could be split down the middle in terms of starts. Like, we don't know which way this situation is going to go, whether Daniel Jones starts the year, they bring in Richardson, maybe he falters, maybe he re-injures the shoulder and Jones comes back in. So I think having exposure to sort of both of them, especially in the super flex format, makes sense. I do think in like taking, like, to Pat's argument of taking 3 quarterbacks, if I'm doing a 3 quarterback build, having some access to Anthony Richardson where he can really take over a game and have a spike week with his rushing ability, I think that makes sense. Just having some exposure there. But in the super flex one, I definitely like having some Jones as well. So sort of all over the place on this quarterback situation, but I don't think there's any clarity in Indianapolis. And now, like Davis said, if Richardson's going to miss a lot of time, it definitely gives Jones sort of the leg up to start game 1.
Oh, but he's definitely starting week 1.
You would think.
The funny thing is that, like, that might be bad. People are saying there's no chance A-Rich leads them to the playoffs. There's no chance he's starting by weeks 15 through 16. I would say all the same thing for Jones. Like, Jones is not leading this team to the playoffs. Jones is, if he starts week 1, is unlikely to hold the job all season. Like, there's almost, you almost want the guy who comes in mid-season or something, but then it's tricky because Richardson's bad enough to get benched if he takes over in mid-season. It could be Jones, Richardson, Jones. So it's just a very unpredictable situation. Ultimately for Downs and Pittman and Warren and all these guys, like, you're going to see some Jones. So if Jones makes you excited to draft Josh Downs, like, you'll get some Jones. I don't know which weeks, but it's it's looking increasingly likely week 1, and then maybe by the end of the season you'll get him again.
Yeah. That's kind of been my read, is that it's not going to be a clean handoff like the Steelers situation last year. We're going to get like a game of hot potato going, and you're just hoping that the one you placed your chips on is starting 15 through 17. And ideally, like even then you could probably see a handoff between
that would be so rough.
Riley Leonard in the fantasy playoffs. It'll be Riley Leonard weeks 15 through 17 when they're completely eliminated.
God, we can't handle that. That is like a realistic possibility, though. It's a rookie.
See what you got out of Riley. See what you got.
Yeah, because it could be an interim head coach is the other thing. So it's interim head coach checking out a rookie. Like it could just be really gross.
The range of outcomes is pretty dire.
It's pretty dire. Yeah. It's not ideal.
How are you playing? We touched on Terry, Theo. How are you playing that kind of divide for round 3, round 4 wide receivers as far as vets versus rookies? Because you kind of have the like Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, Mike Evans cohort going up against, the JSN. Devontae Adams too, obviously. JSN, Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, Tet. Like, are you choosing one side there?
I'm usually gravitating towards the young guys in that argument, but I love Devontae Adams this year as well. I think Adams is just set up to have a really strong season. It's the first, fading Devontae just feels wrong. Like I'm out on Tyreek Hill at that ADP.
I was going to ask you about Tyreek Hill. Yeah,
Tyreek Hill. I've gone back and forth on. I did a top 50 over at Fantasy Points, and it's become a top 100. But I do write-ups in there. And I kept pushing Tyreek Hill further and further down. He's 45 in my top 50, so I would have no access to him in FFPC or Underdog if I'm going with my own rankings. It's just hard to bet on Tyreek Hill. The points per game dropped over 10 points per game, and the target share dropped over 10%. It's crazy, and he's 31 years old, and we have question marks about the offense. So I'm out on him at that price tag. JSN should be going ahead of Tyreek Hill in every single draft. I really like JSN where he's going. I agree with Davis on the enthusiasm for Rashee Rice as well. And I've sort of been one where I've sort of backed up the pro Xavier Worthy arguments all season long. So I guess I like all those guys. But for me, with the veterans, it's definitely Devontae Adams, head and shoulders above the other vets in that range. Adams was over 17 points per game last year on 2 bottom 8 offenses. And I know he benefited from being hyper-targeted by Aaron Rodgers, but now he's on what I think could be a really, really good offense. And we saw the target consolidation between Kupp and Nacua last year, where the two of them had a combined target share that was really usable. And I don't see any reason why we shouldn't be treating Devontae Adams sort of like we were those two guys last year. Adams, I think, should be going a little bit higher in drafts. I don't see any reason why he can't give you 16.5, 17 points per game again, even if Puka smashes. And in our projections at Fantasy Points, we have Devontae Adams finishing as a top 10 wide receiver, and we have Puka Nacua as the wide receiver too. So we're really bullish on those two guys right now.
Yeah, I've been kind of surprised just with how much ambiguity and what a flat tier that kind of round 2 through all of round 3 wide receivers is, that Devontae hasn't made that push up that we did with Cooper Kupp last year, where we just got all in on the entire offense. These two are going to hum and coexist together, but Devontae Adams has just stayed pretty flat.
Yeah, it's weird. And I know he's old. He's super old.
It's literally all it is, man.
Yeah. It's the ageism.
He's going to in week 17, he's going to be 33. I'm 33, man. You know how hard it is for me to get out of bed in December?
I mean, Cooper Kupp was, he turns 32. Wow, I just remembered Cooper Kupp and I have the same birthday. Cooper Kupp was 31 at this point last year, and people had no problem.
Yeah, and guess what? The Cooper Kupp faders were proven correct by unanimous decision. The Cooper Kupp
Adams is 32, though, and he turns 33 in December. So by the end of the season, he will be 33. Yeah, it's not.
So
it's not ideal.
Theo, obviously you're right because the future is unknowable. But if you told me Devontae Adams stays healthy and plays at the same skill level that he exhibited for the Jets last season, I'd probably rank him wide receiver 12. I'd probably take him ahead of T. But each year that a player ascends into their 30s, the more likely it is that they are.
Oh yeah, it's a terrible bet to make on a 33-year-old.
It's not. It's not. I was looking at this the other day because I was arguing with someone about Derrick Henry, and I was running the filters for at running back. It's like absurd. Like LaDainian, this is just kind of neither here nor there, but we're chatting ball. LaDainian Tomlinson went from 1,900 yards and 18 touchdowns to the next season having 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns while not being injured. Well, just like hell, and Phillip Rivers led the NFL in completion percentage, YPA, and passing touchdowns. So it wasn't that the offense created, it just leaves you. But at wide receiver, I think because wide receiver is so technical to begin with, that it's actually you're like the Larry Fitzgerald example, right? Is that Larry Fitzgerald was still churning out 4 reception games at 38 or whatever. Like you can kind of just get by.
Yeah, it's sort of two things because in Dynasty, this has been like, it's kind of a trope of Dynasty where every wide receiver is going to age well. Like there's always like this guy's game, he's going to age so well. And it's like,
I think the haters were right. Tyreek is not going to age well.
Yeah. I want to talk more about him in a second, but we always say this about like every receiver, and then a lot of them just crater. Like a lot of them, and then some guys go really long. Like, Jerry Rice was productive into his 40s. So it's the black marble thing. It's like Adams is either probably going to be pretty close to what he was last year or a disaster. I do think he's cheap enough where he's like a pretty decent pick at the end of the third, early fourth. Like if he was at the 2-3 turn, I really don't think I would have much at all. But I do think he's cheap enough to where, he kind of makes sense. In the same way that I'm taking some Mike Evans. Mike Evans is a guy that I'm like not that excited about. He's also old. One of these guys you would say his game probably isn't going to age well, except it's kind of aging well. And if he's available in the early fourth, then sure. Tyreek is one where, sorry, go ahead.
No, I want to hear you on Tyreek. I guess I was just going to say it. It's like, it's really hard for, I think, our brains as like upside chasers to be content with taking a late 3rd round pick who's going to deliver late 3rd round production and not have the chance to be a 1st round pick next year. Totally. Like if a guy doesn't have the chance to be a 1st round pick next year, like that kills us to have to select them.
It's tough too when they have this age concern because they're like, well, I'm going to stack wins. Maybe I'm not getting this, amazing upside play, but this is a productive receiver that I'm adding here. But it's like, is it? Because he's really old, so he might not be. So yeah, but I'm very price conscious with these guys, but I think they're both fine. Evans and Adams. The Tyreek one is one where like he was at one point kind of moving up to the more like the 2-3 turn, and now he's like starting to fall a little bit. It seems, which I'm kind of terrified by because I don't want to be fading Tyreek, actually, if he's like a late 3rd round pick. I think he's pretty interesting at that price, to be honest. I mean, like the fall stuff, Kyle Dvorak has cited like just some crazy stuff with like how ridiculous his fall off has been in yards per route run and everything. But he still had 1.75 yards per route run last year, which is like honestly pretty close to Jackson Smith and Jigba, who was at 1.81. And then I'm like, wait, so I don't like that he's 2 seasons removed from 3.72 yards per route run, one of the most insanely efficient seasons ever. That's bad. It feels like it should be good. He is 31, but he's actually younger than Adams. And we know that this is an offense that had Tua out with a concussion for a big chunk. We had a really weird offensive design where they were getting the ball out super quickly to Jonnu and Achane for a big portion of the back half of the season. They haven't really addressed the offensive line, so maybe that's what we're dealing with again. But it's not. I guess I don't fully buy that. Like Tyreek fell off in terms of what he's able to do. To me, it felt like an offense that kind of crumbled, and it's an offense that's like a little bit of a Rube Goldberg machine, where if everything's not working, then nothing's working. Mike McDaniel kind of gets exposed every year.
I think I need to file copyright infringement. I'm the only one who's allowed to compare NFL play calling to Rube Goldberg's. That was
I do
my
enough pods
original
with you that I should be allowed.
You know what?
We'll
allow it. Objection overruled.
That was the quickest lawsuit of all time.
Yeah.
But I think it could, like, you kind of need the offense to be at least somewhat humming again for Tyreek to get back to what he was doing. I mean, you don't even need him to get back to what he was doing 2 years ago, because if he does that, then he's like the guy, right? You just need him to not be as bad as he was last year. I think he could kind of have a bit of a bounce back in him as part of the Dolphins just kind of looking a little bit better overall.
It makes me think too, like, and I have not done this yet because Tyreek Hill is such a hard click, but Achane and Tyreek together seem like such a good correlated bet.
That's the perfect correlated bet.
Yeah. Where you're getting essentially you're getting a round discount on Achane and like a 2-round discount on where we drafted Tyreek Hill previously. And if you are saying like, hey, this was a symptom of the offense and they can get back to what they did 2 years ago, like I need to do that a little bit more in drafts because that seems like a good way to play that bounce back.
All right, we can continue this exercise, but I've been meaning to bring this up. I want to give Theo, I just Jameson Williams, in, out, below market, above market.
I'm in, and I think I'm above market on Jameson Williams. I think Jameson Williams is a really good bet to make this year.
I'm going to give Pat a chance to repent and wipe away. I'm going to offer you absolution, Corinne. So 2 things. First being, are you aware that Jameson Williams changed his number to number 1?
That's pretty good, yeah.
Okay.
Come on. That's awesome.
Also, were you aware that Amon-Ra St. Brown had an off-season knee procedure?
No, I didn't realize that.
It literally just came out today because obviously all the Lions beat writers were too busy reporting on, schedule leaks and uniforms, and, they were really busy, so they neglected.
What was the knee procedure?
I'm sure it was just like a cleanup, like a
yeah.
Whatever these guys do. I'm going to offer you absolution right now, and we will welcome you into Team JMO. If you, but this is your last chance, right? This is it. I'm not going to let you change your mind in the future.
Hold strong, Pat.
Yeah, you got it. I'm offering you right now.
Yeah, maybe it was ESPN tweeted out like they did the from weeks 10 through whatever, Jameson Williams was the wide receiver 22 last year. Yeah, and I was like, 22? That's not nearly high enough for a stat like that.
Yeah,
I don't know, man.
It's not.
I'm the market. I get it. I get why the market thinks this guy's awesome, because when you dream on like the 99th percentile outcome for this guy, it's amazing. Like he is ripping my face off.
It's Tyreek. It's one of those crazy early Tyreek seasons.
It's one of those and I agree it's in the range of outcomes. I just don't think it happens enough times for this price. And like largely he's Jared Goff's number 2 option and Jared Goff's deep threat with a new OC and an offense that has been pretty dependent on a dominant offensive line whose center just retired. Like, it's expensive. We have never seen what we're asking him to do. It's all projection. It's, and it's projection that's not really supported by projection. Like it's a talent-based projection argument that I think I understand, why people are making it. And I'm terrified genuinely about what he could do, but I just don't think it's a very good bet at price.
All right. Not absolved. So we know where Corain is going to be going after the season. Peter, I just put this in the private chat. Will you just share this?
Are you saying I'm going to hell?
I'm going with Pat. I have less than 1%.
A lot of positive coach speak too, Davis.
Yeah, no,
You're getting
I know.
the OC offensive coordinator is a hype man for Jameson. Dan Campbell's a hype man for Jameson. Like Detroit is really betting on him. And then we also factor in, Pat, teams were coming and calling, trying to trade for him during the NFL draft. It sounds like it could have been a massive haul from Detroit. They could have traded Jameson Williams and potentially ended up with a first round pick. It sounds like from some of these teams. So I don't know. Lot to like.
No news on this tweet. It's just very funny to me. It's just insanely funny that Dan Campbell had a press conference and said, dude, you know who looks really good? Jahmyr Gibbs and Jameson Williams. Sick.
That Aiden Hutchinson guy is going to be a big member of our defense.
That Aiden Hutchinson guy is going to be a big part of what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was the other one here. Let me see if I can pull it up. This is the quote that's getting everybody excited too. Dan Campbell said, the sky is the limit for Jameson Williams. We expect him to have a huge season.
It's starting to feel a little Calvin Ridley-esque. I'm just gonna put that out there.
No.
It's starting to feel a little Calvin Ridley-esque.
Davis gets that reference as someone who got caught hook, line, and sinker by that propaganda.
But to Davis's argument, like the Ridley steamed up so high Jameson is wide receiver 26 right now. So even if he steams up a little bit, like I remember when Ridley was nearly touching the first round, and in some of those NFFC drafts, I believe he creeped to like the 1-2 turn in some of those drafts. With Jameson, he's always going to get, unless this Amon-Ra St. Brown like knee thing becomes a problem, he's always going to be treated like very much like a wide receiver 2. And then you've also got the Sam Laporta factor where Laporta sort of creeps in there. He's going to stay right around tight end 4. So you're betting on multiple pass catchers in this offense. So Jameson could steam up a little bit, but I don't think he's a guy that's going to steam past wide receiver 20 in ADP, Davis. Like wide receiver 18, if the hype is insane, it's never going to reach a level where you're having to make such a massive bet on Jameson that it's going to really, really burn you if he did like exactly what he did last year.
Well, how about this though, Theo? What's his ADP in season long stuff, and do you view him differently in non best ball?
Let me pull up the main event. So main events right now, he's going to right in the 6th round, which seems
really good.
Really good.
I'm
really
into
good.
that.
Yeah, because
I'm into that.
you get off the platform of the slappies and you don't have to play the slap premium. So
Yeah.
it just gets way better.
But
I'll
am
tell
I
you
not
what.
allowed to object to the slap premium?
No.
I should be able to object.
You are.
You're going to hell because
I'm
you
going to
hell.
You object all you want in hell.
You're allowed to sin. God doesn't stop you from sinning. It's just what happens
True. God
later.
lets you sin. You have free will.
I'll tell you what, that sort of coach speak actually doesn't do anything for me. Like, oh, this guy's a freak. He's the fastest man in the world. What I'd love for this new offensive coordinator to be like, yeah, he's been really good as a deep threat, but we really have been working on getting him more involved, like on crossers and throwing him screen. That I would be like, I'm too low on him right now.
That's how I lose. Because they're like, he's been used as a vertical threat for us, which is awesome. But that's why we drafted Isaac Tesla. Because there's no other reason to draft Isaac Tesla, so hopefully that's why. And then we're going to use him. We're studying the way the Jags use Brian Thomas, and we're gonna use Jameson more like that. We're going to get him deep, but we're going to get him. We're moving him around the formation a little bit.
Would that convert you? Can I share the good news with you?
That would convert me to an extent. The problem is that he would rise on that news, so I think I'd still be behind. But I would definitely raise him on something like that. Like if you're talking specifically about like his role being different, because that's the thing, is that like Amon-Ra commands such a huge share of the targets in this offense, has such like a connection with Goff. I mean, Goff wants an Amon-Ra. Like that is his style of receiver, right? He can get the ball out quickly, he gets open, it's perfect. He has to wait a little bit longer for Jameson Williams, unless they're installing him in a role that's more suitable to the way Goff likes to play, which would fundamentally kind of change the type of bet that Jameson Williams is. I have a hard time thinking that is going to happen, right? If I have to pay for it. If you're telling me like that's going to happen and so pay for that happening, I'm like, how about I don't? How about I find other guys where it's not priced in, where something could happen?
About someone like Jameson Williams, I'm wondering if it doesn't pay to think about a guy who plays that way.
Listen, I am scared. I just want everyone to know how scared I am that this could go bad for me. He really does have like an extremely high, like perfect outcome type of ceiling, because I think that stuff is in play. It's not like I think he's not live to have a better, more defined, more versatile role.
Well, in like Theo, who are some of the wide receivers going around him in round 6 of the mains?
So I mean, you're seeing now, and I don't think this will be the case, but it's sort of a Jameson Williams versus a Chris Godwin, a Chris Olave.
Okay,
I mean, it's an easy click, and sort of to the argument that, and he goes ahead of like the Pickens, Waddles, but he's going like well behind a guy like a Zay Flowers. Like I would rather take the chance on a Jameson Williams than like a Zay Flowers, a player where we have like sort of a clear defined role for what he is in the offense. And Pat, you talk about like Jameson as a better best ball pick than managed. I don't know. I think
he's a better managed pick.
Oh, then I misunderstood you. Yeah. In managed, just stick him in the flex in FFPC.
Yeah.
stick him in the wide receiver 3 in NFFC, and you can deal with the ups and downs.
Yeah.
But you could potentially get 3 weeks in a row where he's like 75 points for 3 weeks in a row. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm very much in on this.
I think the seasons where Jameson hits and is like ripping my face off, there's no question that you're starting him. Like because the role is different, right? Or Amon-Ra misses time. He's not right with the knee. Like he has that in him to just be like a clear-cut league winner smash. Doesn't really matter what you paid for him. You're just like super psyched to have Jameson Williams. That to me is more of the redraft archetype, where it's like I'm missing sometimes when I go for players like that, but so what? I'm stacking up enough huge wins, and then I can backfill the production on my misses. In best ball, I'm thinking more about trying to stack wins with those early picks. So a guy like Zay Flowers, I find, pretty appealing when he's in the mid to late 5th. Like I'm like, he's the number 1 receiver on the Ravens, and the guy he was competing with for targets at tight end is probably falling off. This is pretty sweet. Maybe I even have Lamar, so it's a little different for me in best ball when I think about the downside for Williams, because his downside is just like what he was last year. If Williams is what he was last year at this price, you lose. And that to me is kind of scary.
You don't lose.
It's sort of an even bet if he does what he did last year.
I don't think so.
He's like fine.
But you can get buried by the other picks going around him.
Yes.
So
that's the best argument.
You're talking
that's what it is.
Trying to keep my head above water here.
No, I don't mean you lose at the
totally
6th round price. I mean, I'm talking on underdog. Most of my reservation is really on underdog. And that's where I think like the opportunity cost could really bury you.
He's going side by side with Omarion Hampton, Devonta Smith, Travis Hunter. I get that. And Jaden Daniels slightly ahead of him. And now DK Metcalf with the signing, and like you said, George Kittle. So I think you nailed it, Pete, with the opportunity cost for Jameson Williams, where we just named a bunch of guys that if they have that peak outcome season, you're going to really need potentially one of those guys. So I get that one. That's the huge scale tournament. Jameson Williams bet at that inflated price tag is a lot harder than a 12-team main event league where you're getting him alongside like Chris Olave.
Yeah,
give me Williams there.
You treat him like we have, round 1 rookie wide receivers in main events, right? Where you start with 4 receivers or 3, and then you're tacking this guy on as like your luxury. Like, hey, if it hits, it's really going to melt our face off, and if not, like whatever, we're good. Let's see here. Any favorite quarterbacks? Theo, we haven't talked a ton about quarterbacks other than Rodgers and Daniel Jones, which isn't too fun.
I've sort of liked the elite quarterbacks this year, the guys towards the top of the draft. And then when I get stuck into the low end QB1s, I have a good amount of Justin Fields, Caleb Williams in that range. But I don't mind specifically for best ball, sort of those low end QB2s. I think there's a couple guys there, starting with like the JJ McCaffrey range player, Bryce Young. And when I get super like kind of gross with it, I think Geno's interesting because Geno sometimes falls in these drafts. And I've gotten him a lot of times as like the QB3. I think we're really betting on this Vegas offense taking a big step forward. And I think Geno could end up giving us kind of what he did in Seattle, a little bit more of like a QB15, QB16 type results. But sometimes you get him as like the QB27 in these drafts. So I haven't mind clicking that button. But I think at the end of the day, in a bunch of formats, and I had Ben Gretsch on Dynasty Life the other day, we sort of had the same discussion where Sean and him in, I think it was him and Sean in 2 drafts, might have been him with Sean in 1, by himself in another. But they drafted sort of a elite quarterback in like 2 drafts. And I think in like FFPC, that makes a lot of sense there. Those guys are priced correctly to give you really big results. And I put Jaden Daniels in there with Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson certainly is like my big 3. But then the Jalen Hurts and Joe Burrow are also sort of in a range where I don't mind drafting them. So I think elite quarterback, it's fine this year. And I think it like Pat, you talked about with the QB3s, you sort of also avoid potential landfall players that can really hurt you that have a downside risk when you're drafting those guys in those range. So I think I've been trying to get access to the elite quarterbacks in best ball and also in managed. I think they're priced well this year.
Yeah, you just took me back because I do remember, Pat, like one of the themes to, I think, a lot of our high stakes drafts last year and maybe in years past too, is like you get to this spot typically in like round 5 or 6 and the tier feels relatively flat at wide receiver. Like no one's jumping out at you. And we're like, yeah, we'll just take Kyler Murray or we'll just take Lamar Jackson. Like, let's get that quarterback because it's like they seem like the best pick. But I just remember a lot of times like regretting it structurally when I'm like, man, I wish we just had a little more offensive firepower and like, holy hell, whatever other quarterback was available in round 12 or falling to round 15. And those 2v2s, I remember regretting a good bit.
Yeah, I think though in best ball, it's not a 2v2 because you're just going to take another quarterback.
Oh no, yeah, I'm talking
even
managed.
two later. Yeah, and managed, I think because the other thing is that we tend to take early tight end at a decent clip. So you end up early tight end, early quarterback, and then
you can't do that. That's the in high stakes. You're never allowed to go early quarterback, early tight end. There's certain guys who have. I mean, you can.
I can't build out my starting lineup, Theo. I thought this was a
really tough. It's a really tough bet to make, guys. Really
probably crushed last year if you did like Josh Allen, Brock Bowers. Probably just like an absolute smash show on FFPC.
Every strategy works if you pick the right players, bro.
Well, it's just my favorite thing has been the Hayden passing around the, honestly, like, let's be real, false propaganda that it was best to do 0 wide receivers through 7 rounds last year. I'm like, I'm hoping enough people pick up on that.
Yeah.
Jameson Williams will be a late 5th round pick.
I mean, if you drafted Brian Thomas Jr. and Ladd McConkey in every single draft, the 0 wide receiver was okay last year.
Yeah. I have a sense
Chase in round 1. You needed that.
Maybe a little bit of mixed in some JSN last year too.
Yeah.
I mean, why not just take Geno on like every main event team? You just feel like, dude, he's just going to be 17.8 to 22.4 points per game every week. It's going to be.
Well, this is a show about veterans, and one veteran who hasn't come up yet is Drake Maye, who's now technically a veteran entering his second season. Any thoughts on him, Theo?
Well, I drafted him in a 350 this week as my first quarterback, and I think like if you're committed to getting access to Drake Maye, you can completely pass on quarterback and get him usually as like QB 13, QB 14. So like to Pete's argument, especially in FFPC, NFFC, you're able to get access to some really high-powered players and avoid those early QBs.
Yeah,
I think Drake Maye, like the rushing upside with him is just so high that you want some access to him. We do have a lot of concerns about that offensive line taking a big step forward this year. They addressed it in the draft. They drafted Campbell in the 1st round, Wilson the center in the 3rd round. So they put draft capital into it, and we think the offense is going to be a lot more functional with McDaniels and with Vrabel. And certainly Travion Henderson, I think, helps Drake Maye a lot, having that home run hitter next to him. Ramondre's just been so mid-level the last 2 years in terms of explosiveness. So like I'm in on Drake Maye. I don't think I'm going to be all in on Drake Maye. I don't think this is a situation where you want to have an extreme amount of exposure to him, but I'm certainly going to have some builds around him. It's just a rushing upside. He's like a little bit of squint and see some of that Josh Allen potential rushing ability. And I think he could be a weapon of mass destruction around the goal line if it all works out well, where he just ends up falling in the end zone, could potentially challenge for not getting up to like the Jalen Hurts level, but this is a guy that could end up with a very strong amount of like rushing touchdowns to kind of give himself a little bit of a floor on top of the rushing yardage.
And I think the idea.
Good.
Oh, go ahead. I was just going to say, I think FFPC main event style, like the combo of like a Drake Maye or Justin Fields, and then you grab a way underpriced Geno and you like platoon that safety with just the bigger upside swing.
I put Caleb Williams in that group too.
Caleb,
there's a lot of upside.
There's variance with like Fields and Williams. There's a little bit of variance with sometimes people seem to push them up where they should, like on paper, you might think it's like the QB 11, the QB 12, but you're going to get into drafts where people are going to say, I much prefer Caleb or Fields to like a Baker Mayfield or a Bo Nix, and you don't get to utilize that plan. With Drake Maye, I don't see people reaching for him nearly as much because of the fears of the offense. So he's just a safer bet if you're going in that direction, sort of the weight on quarterback direction. But Pete, I think you've got an argument to double tapping quarterbacks in FFPC main events, have access to 2 of these upside bets with mobility, and you can end up having some really strong builds.
All right. Vivian just heard that her father has been relegated to eternal damnation for fading.
Yeah,
Jameson
look
Williams.
your daughter in the face and say, "Yeah, I am taking DK Metcalf over Jameson Williams for exposure reasons."
Yeah. Well, she's going to spend her time in California or New York, so her odds of salvation aren't super high either.
Are low.
Well, Theo, we appreciate you joining us today to chop it up. Let people know where they can find you over at Fantasy Points and the shows they can keep an eye out for.
Yeah, so all my written content is over at Fantasy Points. My top 50 expands to a top 100 sometime next week. Also dropping a bunch of Dynasty articles and redraft articles. Some are behind a paywall, some are not. And then show-wise, I record the School of Scott with Scott Barrett every single week. I'm also doing Dynasty Life. Davis came on that recently. But the big one is Fantasy Football Daily. I'm dropping about 2 or 3 of those a week, and that's going to be expanding to about 3 or 4 in season. Check out all my shows over at Fantasy Points. Check out the Fantasy Points YouTube channel as well. And yeah, this was a blast today, guys.
Yeah, it was awesome. Great having you on there, and we even got to break some live Aaron Rodgers news. What a treat. Davis continues his run of just being live during all the most influential events, and including an Elon and Donald Trump public feud that is about to boil over in apparently a pretty fun way. Pat, what do you got going? Leg up?
Yeah, just as you mentioned earlier, we dropped eliminator rankings this morning, FFPC best ball rankings a day or so ago. Matt Irby just had a good article on the site this morning as well. I'll be doing some streaming tomorrow, showing off the sim version of the Sidekick as we head towards getting that in people's hands. Very excited for that. So yeah, check it out on the Legendary Upside YouTube channel, and plenty more content coming on Legendary Upside.
What about you, Davis?
I've got 2 videos coming out this weekend, one on Derrick Henry and one actually legitimately useful. Normally my videos are just there for clicks. The one that's going to come out on Saturday is actually legitimately a useful exercise that will help you draft better best ball teams, even if you think I'm an idiot. The way it's framed will legitimately help you draft better teams. True story.
Wow, man, the mental gymnastics you have to do to promote your videos now. Even if you think I'm an idiot, I promise this is the one for you. Check out the Davis Maddock YouTube channel. If you guys missed yesterday, I did Best Ball Bash, had a fun time drafting, and then had Denny on the randomizer. So if you want a shot of his expansive deck, you can tune in to that show. And also relevant around here, our girl Steph Miller, she's going to be joining me on After Dark on Saturday night. So going to get to catch up with Steph there if you guys are a YouTube member on my channel. Otherwise, we'll catch you guys on Tuesday for ADP chasing, and then we'll be back next week on Thursday. For Theo, for Davis, for Pat, I'm Pete. We'll see you guys next time.